San Francisco. I am Joey Soup reporting you the news. It is October 3rd, 1991, and the week is off to a turbulent start for the LGBTQ community. California's Governor Pete Wilson vetoed an anti-discrimination bill aimed at protecting LGBTQ people in the workplace. The bill would have added the term sexual orientation to the list of groups already protected in employment by the state. Many people had expected Governor Wilson to sign the bill, but believe he was heavily leaned on by right-wing interest groups. The veto of the bill has sparked statewide outrage, prompting demonstrations ranging in severity. The LA Times reported yesterday on a demonstration stage at Stanford where Governor Wilson was giving a speech to celebrate their centennial. Wilson, who described the Stanford demonstration as a fascist tactic, gamely completed a speech extolling family values and individual responsibility despite 15 minutes of unbroken screams, whistles, and chants from about 200 protesters who massed below the stage. Protected by a line of police in riot gear and his own security officers, Wilson made a one-handed catch of an orange hurled at him, then lobbed it back into the crowd. The invited guests rose in a standing ovation. But shame, 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 chanted the protesters marching through the aisles and toward the podium. Two plainclothes state police officers flanked Wilson, deflecting eggs, one of which bounced off the governor's shoulder, and wads of paper thrown from the crowd. Wilson called for a future with values more popular in 1950s America, when the family, quote, a sacred union born from romantic love, was more cherished and the country believed itself to be a place where, quote, hard work was rewarded. I turn you now to footage from a protest that took place just 4 evenings ago on September 30th. Be warned, it features mild violence. Take a look.
I'd like to know what you think of Governor Wilson's veto of AB 101.
I think it probably represents a really minority opinion. I think he was influenced a lot by money and a lot by religious people who can influence him a lot because they have money. I think the next step is definitely to put it before the voters. And I think it's going to go before the voters, and I think because of the poll that's been taken, I think the voters are going to vote it in.
I think it's an outrage. How can you possibly veto anybody's civil rights? To think that anybody would be less equal to get a job in this state is an outrage, and Wilson has got to go.
Shame! 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 Shame!
When progress is pushed back, you cannot expect to be met without resistance. Here at Good Evening San Francisco, we hope that the governor has a change of heart. In other news, Tony Kushner's new play, Angels in America, continues to be met with rave reviews. Now being performed by the Eureka Theater Company, Angels in America recounts a story that feels incredibly personal for many homosexuals today. Though Angels in America takes place over the course of 3 months during the fall and winter of 1985 to 1986, and its immediate context is that of the United States under the Reagan administration and the early years of the AIDS epidemic, it frames and draws on a much larger, much longer historical frame, primarily that of the Cold War and its consequences. The play takes place now, in the era that we live in. Many reviews from gay men that have seen the play say that they see themselves in the characters. This is one of the first pieces of theater that feels like it is just for us because it avoids heteronormative narratives and standards. This show also allows us to look back and critically examine the Reagan administration. It is no secret that President Ronald Reagan is no friend of the LGBTQ community, as is evident by his response to the ongoing AIDS epidemic. While we now refer to the disease as the Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome, or AIDS, let us not forget that the name first attributed to the disease was GRID, or Gay-Related Immune Deficiency. This is the label that persists today. AIDS had been killing particularly gay men and intravenous drug users in America since the beginning of the 1980s, and had by 1985 become a regular epidemic. Although the Center for Disease Control estimated in June of 1985 that 11,010 Americans had contracted AIDS and that 5,441 had died, the Reagan administration had yet to address the topic or initiate or allocate money for research. Then on the 23rd of July, 1985, Rock Hudson, American film star, He-Man and heartthrob, publicly admitted that he had AIDS, thereby giving the disease a public face. Until then, he had maintained, much like Roy Cohn in Angels in America, that he had liver cancer. Rock Hudson going public with his disease, though not his sexuality, created an early watershed moment in the history of AIDS, from which point on AIDS could no longer be kept a secret gay disease. Having not yet addressed the topic in public, Reagan mentioned AIDS in a press conference in 1985, but the Reagan administration did not give a major policy address on the AIDS crisis publicly until 1987. It is this recent history, these facts that we cannot forget come this time next November during the presidential election. We cannot allow for another 4 years of Reagan-Bush or Bush-Quayle policies. We would not survive it. Earlier today, October 3rd, 1991, the Democratic governor of Arkansas announced that he will seek the highest office in the land come next November. While it is unclear if this man is indeed a friend to the LGBTQ community, one thing's for sure, we all must keep an eye on Bill Clinton. Before I sign off for the evening, I'd like to say one more thing to our community. Organization, protests, marches, rallies, parades, and other various events are a phenomenal way to show unity and produce a message. Our community is uniquely diverse as it includes people of all genders, ethnicities, ages, and sexual orientations. While our community has many factions, we all stand together when it comes to the fight for equality. I will remind you that the best way to get change, to get your voice heard, to make a difference, is to vote. We cannot always change the way people think, but we sure as hell can vote them out of office. That is the news of the day, folks. Let us all hope for a brighter tomorrow. I am Joey Soup, signing off.